Das ist das erste Mal in meinem ganzen Leben, dass ich eine Haarwäsche geskippt habe. Und es ist sehr fettig, aber es juckt nicht wie die Sau und es fallen keine Schneewehen aus dem Haar. Deswegen gut, hat geklappt. Natürlich jetzt, wo ich sage, hier an dieser Stelle, da juckt es ein bisschen, aber ansonsten keine Kruste. Okay. But Josephine was beside herself with passion. She would not be silent. Neither the dead nor these on the walls, nor the living sister should stifle the expression of her feelings. I take back my promise, she cried. Panting with oh, da kommt ein bisschen was. Na gut, ist halt so. The expression of her feelings. I take back my promise, she cried, panting with excitement. Her words were scarcely coherent. Do you hear? Do you understand? I promise nothing after this. You may beat me if you like, you may lock me up. It will be all the same. I'll go into the country tomorrow, but I'll make no promise. I shall see Hawksworth if I can. I shall run away to him if I can. I'd rather do anything in the world after this than go on living with you. With you. You'll not go on living with me, Mrs. Northey answered, and her eyes glittered after an ugly fashion. I'll see to that, you little scald tongue. You'll go to Aunt Leah and feed pigs and do plain stitch. I hope it may agree with those dainty hands of yours. And you'll run away from there if you can. She'll see to that. I'll be bound she'll break some of that pretty spirit of yours. Grand as you think yourself. So because your precious Tom chooses to take up with some drab or other, you put it on us, do you? Go, you little vixen. Go to your room before I do you a mischief. You'll not promise, but the key shall. Up, miss, up. We will have no more of your tantrums. Vixen. Zänkisches Weib, Drachen. Bissgurren. Du kleines Bissgurren. Reduced to tears and broken down by the violence of her emotions, Josephine asked nothing better than to escape and be alone with her misery. She turned as quickly as she could. She hurried from the room. Fast as she went, however, Mrs. Northey pushed after her, treading on her heels and forcing her on. Who passed between them, Mr. Northey could not hear, but in no long time Mrs. Northey was down again and flung a key on the table. There, she cried, her nose twitching with the constraint she put upon her age. And what do you think of your management now, Mr. Impeccable? Nee. Imbecile? Schwachsinnig. Imbecile. Imbecile. Mr. Imbecile? I always said that we ought to tell her. You always said? Yes, I did. You always said, his wife cried. And was not that a very good reason for doing the other thing, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Oh Lord, why did God give me a fool for a husband? Mrs. Northey was no novice. She knew something of intrigue, something of her sex. Her first step was to discharge Josephine's woman, a village maid, who had come with her young mistress from the country. The key of the offender's chamber was then entrusted to Madame's own woman. Mrs. Martha, our sour spinster, our sour spinster, spinster. Das gibt's gar nicht. Spinsterhood, Jungfern, Spinnerin, alte Jungfer, die Jungfer. Mrs. Martha, a sour spinster, matured not by years only, but by an unfortunate experience of the other sex. Which secured her from the danger of erring on the side of leniency where they were concerned. Mr. Northey could not immediately leave London, therefore it was necessary that arrangements for the culprit's transport to the thorough custody of Aunt Leah at Chalk Hill should be postponed. But all that Mrs. Northey could do short of this she did, and these dispositions made, she prepared to await events with a mind tolerably at ease. In every net, however, there are meshes, and small is the mesh through which a large fish cannot escape. It is probable that poor blubbering Dolly, the dismissed maid, innocent as she declared herself, was in somebody's pay, and knew where information could be sold, for before Josephine had been confined to a room for 4 hours before the first passionate tears were dried on her cheeks. A clockmaker, who had come in to regulate the tall clock on the stairs, made the odd mistake of mounting when no one was looking to the second floor. A moment later, a fingernail scraped Josephine's door. A note was thrust under it, and deftly as he had come, the workman, a pale, fat, elderly man, crept down again. He made little noise, for, to save his honest drugget, he had left his boots in the hall. Josephine, recovering from a momentary astonishment, pounced on the note, opened it, and read it. And alas, for her discretion, her eyes sparkled through her tears as she did so. Thus it ran: "Sweetest and best beloved of your sex, the raptures of my heart, when my eyes dwell on yours, cannot be hidden, and must have convinced you that on you depends the life or death, happiness or misery of your Hector. If you will, you can plunge me into an abyss of hopelessness in which I must spend the rest of my existence. Or if you will, you can make me in possession you the happiest, as I am already in aspiring to you the boldest of mankind. Oh, my Josephine, dare I call you that? Can such bliss be reserved for me? Can it be my lot to spend existence in the worship of those charms for which the adoration of the longest life passed in thinking of you, and serving you were an inadequate price? May I dream that I shall one day be the most enviable of men? If so, there is but one course to be taken. Fly, dearest, fly. Your cruel relatives, you have already immured you, and will presently sacrifice you, innocent and spotless, on the vile altar of their ambition. Hold a white handkerchief against your window at 6 this evening, and the rest is easy. At dusk the day after tomorrow, so much time I need, I will find means to remove you. A few minutes later, Dr. Keith of Mayfair Chapel, a reverend divine who will be in waiting at my lodging, will unite you in indissoluble bonds to one whose every thought thenceforth not given to his king, will be consecrated to the happiness of his Josephine. Already my heart beats with rapture, in swoon at the thought. The pen falls from the hand of your humble, adoring lover, Hector. Das ist geil. Ohnmacht. Du beendest den Brief, indem du sagst, der Stift fällt mir aus der Hand. Need we wonder that Josephine held the letter from her and held it to her, scanned it this way and scanned it that way, kissed it and kissed it again, finally with a glance at the door hid it jealously within her dress. She would have done these things had she been as much in the dark about Tom and the machinations formed to rob him as she had been when she rose that morning. But she would have halted there. She would have pardoned her lover his boldness, perhaps have liked him the better for it, but she would not have granted his prayer. Now her one aspiration was for the moment when she might take the leap. Her one feeling was impatience for the hour when she might give the signal of surrender. The pillars of her house were shaken. Her faith in her sister, in her friends, in her home was gone. Only her lover remained, and if he were not to be trusted, she had no one. She did not tell herself that girls had done this thing before. Maiden modesty notwithstanding, and had found no cause to repent their confidence. For her determination needed no buttressing. Her cheeks flamed. Buttressing. Arschflattern. Nee. Vorbau. Aussteifen. Stützen, untermauern. And she thrilled and trembled from head to foot as she pictured the life to which she was flying. But the cheek flamed as hotly when she painted the past and the intolerable craft and coldness of the world on which she turned her back. The window of her room looked into Arlington Street. Wohin sonst? She stood at it gazing down on the stand of chairmen and sedans that stretched up to Portugal Street, a thoroughfare now part of Piccadilly. The end of the scaffolding outside Sir Robert Walpole's new house came within a few feet of the sill on which she leaned. The hoarse, speary voices of the workmen and the clangor of the hammers were destined to recall that day to her as long as she lived. Yet for the time she was scarcely conscious of the noise, so close was the attention with which she surveyed the street. She heard nothing. Below, as on the other days, both sauntered round the corner of Bennett Street on their way to White's, or stood to speak to a pretty woman in a chair. Country folk paused to look at Sir Bluestring's new house. A lad went up and down crying the Evening Post, and at the corner at the lower end of Arlington Street, then open at the south, a group of boys sat gambling for halfpence. Josephine saw all this, but she saw no sign of him. She thought, though St. James' clock tolled the 5:15. Eagerly she looked everywhere, her heart beating quickly. Surely Hawksworth would be there to see the signal and to learn his happiness with his own eyes. She leaned forward. Then on a sudden she recoiled. Sir Harvey Coke, passing on the other side, had looked up. He knew then that she was a prisoner. Her woman's pride rebelled at the thought, and hot with anger she stood a while in the middle of the room. Whereon St. James' clock struck 6. It was the hour appointed. Without hesitation, without the loss of a moment, Josephine sprang to the window and with a steady hand pressed her handkerchief to the pane. The die was cast. She thought that on that something would happen. She felt sure that she would see him, would catch his eye, would receive some mark of his gratitude, but she was disappointed, and in a minute or two, after gazing with a bold bashfulness this way and that, she went back into the room, her spirits feeling the reaction. For 48 hours from this she had naught to do but wait. Wait and wait. For all that time she was doomed to inaction. It seemed scarcely possible that she could wait so long and so long. Scarcely possible that she could possess herself in patience. The first hour indeed tried her so sharply that when Mrs. Martha brought her supper, she was ready to be humble even to her for the sake of 5 minutes' intercourse. But Mrs. Martha's conversation was as meager as the meal she brought, and the girl had to pass the night as best as she could. Next morning, however, when the woman, after jealously unlocking the door and securing it behind her after a fashion that shook the girl with rage, set down her breakfast, the crabbed old maid was more communicative. Thank the Lord, it is almost the last time I shall have to climb those stairs, she grumbled. You may look, miss, for Josephine was gazing at her resentfully enough, and think yourself mighty clever. It's little you think of the trouble your fancies give such as me. There, putting down the tray. You may take your fill of that, and not burst either. Maybe 'tain't delicate enough for your stomach, but 'twas none of my pudding. Josephine was hungry, and it was no pudding, and the meal was scanty. But pride made her avert her eyes. Why is it almost the last time? If they think they can break my spirit by starving me. Hoity-toity, the woman said. I'd keep my breath to cool my porridge if I were you. I'd keep my breath to cool my porridge if I were you. Lord, I wouldn't have your hot temper miss for something, but won't help you much with your Aunt Leah, from all I hear. They say she was just as a one as you once, and willful is no word for her. Josephine's heart began to beat. Am I to go to her? She asked. That you are, and the sooner the better for my legs, miss. When? Josephine's voice was low. Tomorrow, no later. The chaise is ordered for 6. His Honor will take you himself, and I doubt you'll wish you'd brought your pigs to another market before you've been there many days. Leastways, from what I hear, 'tis no place for a decent Christian, I'm told. The woman continued spitefully. Just thatch and hogs. Thatcher. Thatch. Stroh. And mud. To your knees, you never a wheeled thing, John says. In the place, nor a roar, nor a mug of beer to be called beer, all poor as rats, and no one better than the other. As how should they be, and 6 miles of a pack road to the nearest highway? You'll whistle for your lover there, miss. Go down, Josephine said. Oh la, I don't want to stay. It's not for my own amusement I've stayed so long, and no thanks for my kindness either. I have my own good dinner downstairs, and the longer I'm here, the cooler it'll be. Which some people like their dinner hot and behave themselves accordingly. But I know my duty, and by your leave, miss, I shall do it. She bounced out of the room with that and turned the key on the outside with a noisy care that hurt the ear if it did not wound the spirit. Nasty, proud, stomached thing, she muttered as she descended the stairs. I hope Madame Lear will teach her what's what. And for all she's monstrous high now, I warrant she'll come to eating breast of veal as well as another, and glad to get it. What Sir Irvy can see in her passes me, but men and fools are all one, and it takes mighty little to tickle them if it be red and white. For my part, I'm glad to be rid of her. One's tantrums is as much as I can put up with, duty or no duty. Mrs. Mother might have taken the matter more easily had she known what was passing in the locked room she had left. Josephine's indifference was gone. She paced the floor in a fever of uncertainty. How was she to communicate with her lover? How tell him that his plans were forestalled, and that on the morrow, hours before his arrangements were mature, she would be whisked away and buried in the depths of the country, in a spot the most remote from the world? True, at the foot of his letter was the address of his lodging at Mr. Wallenhope's in Davis Street, near Berkeley Square, and Dolly might this evening have got a letter to him. But Dolly was gone. Dolly and all her friends were far away, and Mrs. Mother was stone. Josephine wrung her hands as she walked feverishly from door to window, from the window to the wall. She knew nothing of the 100 channels through which a man of the world could trace her. To her eyes, the door of Chalkhill bore the legend Dante had made famous. To her mind, to go to Aunt Leah was to be lost to her lover, to be lost to the world. And yet what chance of escape remained? Vainly thinking, vainly groping, she hung at the window, tearing a handkerchief to pieces, while her eyes raked the street below for the least sign of him she sought. There were the same, was heißt das? Es kommt die ganze Zeit. Boaks. Freund. There were the same boaks strutting round the same corner. Hanging on the, wie das Boaks? Der Bow. Der Bow. Mein Bow. Wo sind meine Bows? An alle meine Bows. An alle meine Bogen. Fuck you. Hanging on the same arms, bowing to the same chairs, ogled from the shelter of the same fans. The same hackney coachman quarreled, the same boys gambled at the corner. Even Sir Harry paused at the same hour of the afternoon, looked up as he had looked up yesterday, seemed to hesitate, finally went on. But Hawkesworth was nowhere. Her eyes aching with long watching, the choke of coming tears in her throat, Josephine drew back at last and was in the act of casting herself on her bed in a paroxysm of despair. Also wenn der Autor alle diese Wörter einfach so kannte, war es der schlauste Mensch ever. Ein Krampf. Paroxysm of despair when a shrill voice speaking outside her door reached her ears. The next moment she heard her name. She sprang to the door, the weight lifted from her heart. Any happening was better than none. Here, she cried, here, and struck the panels with her hands. Where? Oh, I see, the voice answered. Then, thank you, my God, woman, it went on. I'll trouble you no farther. I can open for myself. I see the key is in the lock. But on that, Mrs. Martha's voice was raised loudly remonstrating. My lady, she cried, you don't understand. I've the strictest orders. To keep her in? Just so, you foolish thing, and so you shall, but not to keep me out. Still, just to be sure, I'll take the key in with me. On which Josephine heard the key turn sharply in the clock, the door flew open, and in bounced Lady Betty. To insert a key on the inside and secure the door behind her was the work of a moment. Then she dropped the astonished Josephine an exaggerated curtsy. Ein Knicks, aha. Curtsy? La miss, I crave your pardon, I'm sure, for calling your name so loud on the stairs, but that silly thing would do nothing but her orders. So, as she would not show me the way, I ran up myself. You're very kind, Josephine said. And she stood trembling and feeling sudden shame of her position. Lady Betty seemed to see this. La, is it true they won't let you out? Mm. The visitor's eyes roved from the meager remains of the midday meal to the torn shreds of handkerchief that strewed the floor. Then it's a shame, it's a black, monstrous shame. I know what I should do if they did it to me. I should break, I should burn, I should tear. I should tear that old fried's wig off to begin, but I suppose it's your sister? Yes. Lady Betty made a face. Horrid thing. I never did like her. Is it because you won't? Is it because you have a lover, miss? La, don't mind me, I have 5. Your child cried naively. I'll tell you their names if you like. They are nothing to me. The foolish things, but I should die if I hadn't as many as other girls. Turbe Turbe. To see them glare at one another is the finest sport in the world, but you love one of them? La, no. It's for them to love me, Lady Betty cried. I should be a fool if I loved them. Men are trash, but men are litter. But the letter that I tore up, Josephine ventured. The child blushed and with a queer laugh flung herself on the other's neck and kissed her. That was from a lover I ought not to have. If it had been found, I should have had my ears boxed and been sent into the country. You saved me, you duck, and I'll never forget it. Josephine bent on the most serious imprudence could be wise for another. From a lover whom you ought not to have? You'll not do it again, will you? You'll not receive a second. La, no, I promise you. He's well. He's a nobody. He's a nobody, but he writes such dear, darling, charming notes. There, now you know. Oh, yes, it was horrid of me, but I hate him, so that's enough. You promise? Josephine said, almost severely. I vow I do. Lady Betty cried. The creature's a wretch. Now tell me, you poor thing, all about him. I've told you my affair. Ach so. Die hat ja diesen Brief zerrissen. Die verbindet diese Geschichte. Womöglich ist es derselbe. Here was indeed a blind leader of the blind, but after a little hesitation, Josephine told her story. She was too proud to plead the justification. Oder von der Betty ist es der Tom. Vielleicht aber auch nicht. Oder hat die gesagt, wer es ist? Die hat doch irgendeinen Namen gesagt. Nee, doch nicht. He's a nobody. He writes such dear, darling, charming notes. She was too proud to believe Tom supplied. Nor was there need of this. Even in the butt, Lady Betty found the story beautiful. And when Josephine went on to her lover's letter and blushing and faltering owned that he had pressed her to elope, weglaufen. Elope. The listener could contain herself no longer. Elope, she cried. Oh, the dear bold man. Oh, how I envy you. Envy me? Yes, to be locked in your room and starved. I hope they starve you. And sold it and threatened and perhaps carried into the country. And all the time to be begged and prayed and entreated to elope. And the dear creature wailing and sighing and consuming below. Oh, you lucky, lucky, lucky girl. And Lady Betty flung herself on Josephine's neck and embraced her again and again. You lucky thing, and then perhaps to be forced to escape down a ladder. Escape? Josephine said, shaking her head piteously, and she explained how far she was from escaping. By this time tomorrow, she continued, I shall be at Chalkhill. No, you will not, Lady Betty cried. You will not. By good luck, 'tis between lights. Put on your hoop and sack. Sack. A vintage term of a loose-fitting hanging garment. Typically a short jacket. In the 18th century. Uh-huh. Sack. Sack. Witz ausgesprochen. Sack. Ne? Put on your hoop and suck. Take. Put on your hoop and suck. Put on your hoop and suck.